Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes! The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it. Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And with almost 14 days since the last Philadelphia Union game, they take on Charlotte FC this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. at Subaru Park. Charlotte are coming into Chester on a 2-game winning streak with wins against New England and most recently a 2-0 victory over FC Cincinnati. Well, joining me to preview this upcoming match is a former Clayton State University goalkeeper, Watford and Reading FC professional goalkeeper, play-by-play for the Mercer Bears and Atlanta United 2, and current color commentator for Charlotte FC on WFNZ, Miss Jessica Charman. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. We'll have to get that one sent over to my guys at FNZ.
Absolutely. But I know I mentioned only a couple of your accomplishments, but man, you've been a part of a lot of great organizations, whether that's commentating or playing. And you're originally from England. Now you're calling games for Charlotte. And it's been, I'm sure, a crazy 4 to 8 years for you since you've been here in the States, huh?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'll say that. When I got off a plane in 2013 as an 18-year-old to come play collegiate soccer, I don't know if I expected to end up staying here and commentating. And, you know, maybe there was a goal of continuing pro, but my life had other plans. And I don't think there's any other way that I could see it going now than being a commentator. It's another world that I'm getting to see, and grateful to have the opportunity to start from scratch with Charlotte FC.
Absolutely. And like, you're a part of history, the first season for Charlotte, and whether or not you stay at Charlotte for the rest of your career or not, you know, your name's always going to be in the history books that you were the very first color commentator on the radio for Charlotte. And that's got to feel amazing. But anyway, like I do with any new guests onto the podcast when they come on, whether they were playing soccer, whether they're a commentator writing about soccer, I always like to find out, you know, how did they get into soccer? And I guess in your case, like you said, as an 18-year-old coming from England to going to university here, now eventually landing multiple play-by-play gigs.
Yeah, started very young. I have an older brother, so there was no other way I was going to play than to follow in my brother's footsteps and try and do everything that he did. So started playing about 5 years old. Became a goalkeeper because I just wanted to play all the time. People don't realize, but goalkeepers, as long as you're playing, you're not going to get taken off the pitch. So it was my way of making sure that I got to play as much soccer as possible. Ended up being pretty good at it. Parents invested a lot of time, a lot of effort driving me around, getting me out there, and then made the opportunity to come to America. It's the only place in the world that you can really get your education paid for playing soccer. And then commentary kind of found its way to me. I always enjoyed watching, you know, play-by-play analysis, those sort of breakdown shows, listening to podcasts. And once I started getting to do it, people started to realize, okay, she knows what she's talking about. I think the English accent helps a little bit. I would be lying if I said it didn't, but you know, Charlotte FC found its way to me. And when I got that call, it was one that I couldn't really believe was coming, and grabbed the opportunity with both hands. And, you know, it's been a wild couple of months. I only found out about the gig in January. It was quite quick and quite rushed. And, you know, the city has been a place that I've fallen in love with now. And the team has really been an exciting team, I think would be the word to describe it.
Over 80,000 fans or close to it, the very first match in Charlotte. And I can only imagine how loud it was in that stadium for that moment. And I guess it probably has to feel, I don't know, maybe not strange, but I've definitely seen Atlanta fans giving you a little bit of stick on social media for calling Atlanta United 2 games. And now, you know, there's a potential rivalry going between Charlotte and Atlanta, maybe?
Yeah, it was tough. You know, obviously I still live in the outskirts of Atlanta. I commute to Charlotte, but it's a place that I'll always be grateful for. They gave me a lot of opportunities. I wish the club well, apart from when they play against Charlotte, of course. And at the end of the day, who wouldn't? If they get their dream job opportunity, who wouldn't go? There's plenty of players that have to move and change allegiances, and you just want to represent whoever you're at the best you can. And you know, it wouldn't be, it's all fun and games on Twitter. You know, you can't take any of that to heart, but it definitely grew into the rivalry. And I think it helped turn some Charlotte FC fans that didn't know about me. Suddenly they really started getting on my back and defending me. So it did me a bit of a favor.
Absolutely. But let's go ahead and talk about Charlotte FC versus Cincinnati, the game that happened last week. And like I mentioned in the intro, Charlotte won that game against Cincinnati 2-0 last weekend with goals coming from Karol Swiderski, who had a bit of a drama over the weekend as well with the Poland FA in Charlotte over a hamstring strain that he suffered against New England, which everything has been resolved between the Polish FA and Charlotte. No hard feelings lost. But this is a game where Cincinnati dominated in tackles, aerial duels on the day, but Charlotte, they were able to defend well against Cincinnati's attack, especially with Kristijan Kahlina, the goalkeeper, coming up with 5 big saves. But what are your big takeaways from this game against Cincinnati, where, like I mentioned, some of the key areas where Cincinnati dominated and Charlotte was able to shut them out and score 2 goals against them?
I think it was refreshing for Charlotte FC, right? We've been in a lot of matches where we felt like we were on top and then the results didn't go their way. And this one, they really did well to ride the storm. There were moments when Charlotte FC dominated in possession. They were able to get their 2 goals, but then there were some really rocky parts right towards the end of the first half. It looked like FC Cincinnati were, really margins away from getting an equalizer, but they were able to show maturity. They were able to show cohesiveness to prevent that happening. There's some huge saves from Kristijan Kahlina that he's already putting his name in MLS books right now as someone that is one of the best goalkeepers in the league. He has stood on his head on multiple occasions for Charlotte FC. He's a pleasure to watch. But as I say, it was about riding those waves of momentum against FC Cincinnati. Do I think that they can get away with giving away some of the quality of chances against you guys on Saturday? No, I don't. It's not to disrespect FC Cincinnati. They're a side that has improved tenfold from what we've seen in their first 3 years in MLS. But there were moments where I think a better quality forward, or a forward that has maybe less pressure on their shoulders trying to prove themselves, finishes those opportunities that Charlotte FC gave away. So I think it was a great learning game for Charlotte because, yes, they got the 2-0 win. They got the shutout. They deserved those moments. It's been coming. But did you give away a couple of opportunities that you shouldn't? Yeah. So it felt like luck is sort of swinging in our favor a little bit, whereas we haven't seemed to have that luck behind us in the first 3 games, at least, of the season.
Sticking with Kahlina, I mean, there's a lot of players on this Charlotte roster that fans may not know, and one of those players being Kahlina. And you go ahead and look. He leads MLS with saves with 21. He's 5th in save percentage with 84%. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind for Charlotte, and I'm not even sure if Charlotte fans realize what kind of player they were getting in Kahlina. And, I mean, he's just been outstanding. Like you said, yeah, you guys gave away a couple chances, and I'll even go and look at the game against Atlanta United where you guys could have taken the point, but instead Miguel Ramirez is going for all 3 of the points, and you guys concede later on in that game and wind up dropping all 3 points. But yeah, Kahlina's been playing out of his mind, and he's one player that's really been impressive for me. And just what are your takeaways on him early on?
The front office has always been very vocal that the goalkeeper, particularly in Miguel Ramirez's system, is the most important component, which obviously I'm a big fan of. I think that's about time goalkeepers got some respect. But he is a player that is called upon to use his feet a lot because of the distribution that's needed in the model. And sometimes with this modern goalkeeper, right, you sacrifice the shot stopping in favor of the possession base, of the comfort with the ball at their feet. With Kristijan Kahlina, that doesn't seem to be the case. His quality of save that he is making, his footwork to move across the goal, his agility, his speed off of the line, there's a good defensive line. Charlotte FC's defenders also have a lot of quality, but when they get lax, when they turn the ball over, which is a risk again in the system, he has been there, he has been big. And they said it was the most important player, and the front office has also been very vocal to say it's not a surprise to us. We did our research. We knew who we were getting. Did I know who he was before he came? No, I would be naive to say that I didn't, but he came in, he proved himself, and we're very grateful to have him in goal. And man of the match, 2 matches in a row voted for by the club. That doesn't happen for goalkeepers. Very, very rarely are they seen to be the reason that a team wins, particularly when they win, because you think you would go with the scorer. But he got selected over Karol Swiderski, who had 2 goals, which I think that just shows the quality of the level that he's playing right now.
Andre Blake, at the end of every single Union season, the last couple seasons, it's always like, who was the most valuable player? Andre Blake. And you're right, goalkeepers don't get talked about a lot, but once you have a good one, you hope that they stay around at the club for a while. And I wasn't even going to ask this, but, you brought it up, and I'm a Manchester United fan, and David De Gea is terrible with his feet. He was known as a shot stopper, and now, like you said, you look at Ederson, you look at Alisson Becker with Liverpool. These guys are good with playing with their feet. How do you feel as a former goalkeeper, where shot stopping's been second nature to you? Okay, we want players that can play with their feet.
I wish I was born 5-6 years later, honestly. It sounds silly, but they've changed so much. The role of the goalkeeper, even in my lifetime, has changed so much. And now you're not picking a goalkeeper as much based on the shot stopping. That's a given. You should be good at saving shots. You're a goalkeeper. But now they're expecting you to be comfortable, not just with, back passes or handling that, but literally being a sweeper keeper, having the ball at your feet, taking on forwards. And it's a risky move, when these goalkeepers that particularly aren't, adjusted to this style of trying to take on forwards, it can lead to a lot of mistakes. So I think now you'll see this new generation of goalkeepers come up that they've been doing it since they were kids. So it's natural to them. But when you see goalkeepers, and I use Brad Guzan as an example because I saw him play a lot at Atlanta, Brad Guzan is not comfortable all the time with this new role of goalkeeper, because Brad Guzan grew up in a world where, using your feet was somewhat important, but not at the same level. When he's put in this system and he's asked, it's a whirlwind for him. So I think we're going to see the evolution of the goalkeeper continue, and it might get to the stage again where shot stopping is almost secondary, because if you can have a goalkeeper that's good with their feet, you keep the ball away from the goal. You stop those mistakes happening because you have another outlet. So it's advantageous when you can use it. But if you don't have the right goalkeeper in net, if you want to play that style, you're doomed.
You see so many teams going with that, where they want a goalkeeper that can have good distribution from the back. And it's I don't know, it's strange to me where, again, I'll mention David De Gea, where he was, 5-6 years ago, one of the best goalkeepers in the world because of his shot-stopping abilities, and now, the game's passing by. And
they don't care about him anymore, and it's sad to see, because you're right, he's an incredible reaction goalkeeper. There's not many goalkeepers I would want to have on my side if it was just down to shot-stopping, but when you create the complete package of a goalkeeper, does he fulfill it anymore? And you have to wonder and think the answer is you're not sure.
I guess when you have Harry Maguire in your team too, that's asking a lot as well. But
hey, he had a good World Cup, one good World Cup.
He did, right? And then he goes for 80 million pounds. Oh, don't even get me started. But let's go ahead and continue talking about Charlotte FC. He's definitely seeing a lot of shots again. He had 16 shots in his last 3 games with Charlotte, and he's only let in 3 goals in his last 3 games, while gave up 4 goals in his first 2 games against DC and the Galaxy. Do you credit the way that Kristijan's been playing because of the defense improving, or is it a little bit of a mixture of both?
I think it's a combination of everything. We've seen some adjustments in formation. We started with a back 3/5 with the wing backs. We've moved into a back 4. Not really sure what we're going to see on Saturday. Miguel Ramirez doesn't really believe in the term formation. He always talks about it being fluid and alive. He likes to see it move and adjust. Love him as a manager. I think the main thing that we're seeing, though, is them getting confident in the system, right? It's a difficult system to play. He wants defenders to be comfortable moving the ball around. Just like we talked about the goalkeeper, a lot of centre backs don't want to have the ball at their feet. They don't want to be asking for possession. They don't want to be checking in and being expected to make the right choice to carry and pass. A lot of the time, centre backs want to just go long. Well, you can't do that in the system. So I think early on in the first couple of games, you saw that nervousness. You saw the gaps between the holding mids and the defenders, and teams were able to exploit that. A couple of awkward giveaways. We've had a horrible record of giving away penalties. We had our first, 3 penalties given away in the first 4 games, I believe it was, I believe it was first 4 games, 4. Which is a horrible defensive record. But that was coming somewhat from bad luck, you could say, but also from putting yourself in those pressured situations. So I think you could see that this team is getting more confident playing with each other, more comfortable in the style, wanting possession more, and just looking like a side that doesn't feel they have to overly respect their opponent. I think in the first couple of games against DC and against LA Galaxy, they weren't feeling comfortable in their own skin, so they weren't feeling like they could bring the game to the opposition. When you watch them start out against Atlanta, you watch them against FC Cincinnati, you watch them against the Revolution, they seem to believe themselves so much more, which is an exciting time. And now they're coming into this match with momentum. But I truly believe this is the real test when it comes, and going away from home, it's going to be different. They've got used to playing in front of a wonderful crowd. So going away and having that animosity is going to be different as well.
I think the one thing that Charlotte fans don't need to worry about is, okay, are we going to travel? I think they're going to have a great supporting cast following them to Subaru Park, because it's been that way the first couple away games, and I don't see why it wouldn't continue as the season progresses. But let's go ahead and stick with players that have impressed early on for Charlotte. Let's switch from goalkeeping to attack. And yeah, a lot of people probably want to talk about Swiderski, who has 4 goals in 5 games for Charlotte, which is tied for the most in the league. But the player I want to focus on is former Union Academy player and Maryland Terrapin, Ben Bender. And so my listeners, they know anytime that a player that played at College Park, whether they're from Maryland, I want them to do well because I'm from Maryland. And so to paint a picture for my listeners, Ben attended Calvert Hall High School in Maryland, which is a private school just outside of Baltimore City. Calvert Hall is a top soccer program in the country, and where if you're not playing at the club level, you stand no chance playing for Calvert Hall. And so anytime I would play summer leagues here in Maryland, one of my teammates played club soccer with a lot of kids that went to Calvert Hall. So those guys would come and play with us, and like they would make me look like a star player. I would just play one simple pass and they're finishing everything. And so Ben showed that and then some early on with Charlotte, and he sure has shown that at Maryland under Coach Sasho Sarowski at College Park, where he was a standout player his 2 years at Maryland. Ben, as we know, got drafted number 1 overall by Charlotte, the 3rd ever Maryland player drafted 1st overall. Ben's currently tied in the lead with assists with 3, and he's been captivating the eyes of MLS fans all around the league. He's 10th in MLS in key passes with 11, tied for the most completed passes in the 18-yard box with 5. So what's impressed you early on from Ben this season?
God, he's incredible. He is so smart. Like hearing him talk about the game, we were lucky enough to get to interview him a couple of weeks back. His soccer IQ level is incredibly high, which is needed again in this complex system. His adjusting to MLS, right? Like he spoke to us about how you have to be that much faster in MLS because a gap that you see in the collegiate level suddenly disappears. But you wouldn't tell that he had these nerves about these gaps closing because he's just come into his own, his work ethic and practice every single day. He wants to be the best. And he stepped into MLS and not missed a beat. And I think that's so incredible because you don't see players have standout seasons their rookie years that often. It's a rare trait. And he was a player that maybe when he was signed, we were excited about the prospect, but you know, in my head, maybe he was getting loaned out to, you know, a USL team. Maybe he was going to try and get minutes elsewhere. Well, he had different ideas. He's worked hard. He's got his break. You know, he was coming off of the bench in the first 2 matches. And then, you know, someone gets injured. He gets into the starting lineup. And it's a testimony now to how he's performed under that pressure, how he's adjusted, because it doesn't matter who gets back fit now for Charlotte FC. It doesn't matter if they add additions. That's Ben Bender's spot to lose. And he's just blown me away with his maturity, with his hard work, with his vision on the pitch. And he doesn't play like a rookie.
No, he doesn't. I mean, it's, you know, teams still use the draft in MLS, but a team like Philadelphia Union, they'd much rather have players come out of their academy, we all know. But every now and then, you're still find players through the draft. I look at Kamar Miller with Montreal. I look at Johnston also with Montreal. He was drafted by Nashville. There are still good players in the draft, but some teams are like, okay, I'd rather invest into the academy. And Ben Bender is proof that, look, there is still quality players in the MLS draft. And I'm with you. I didn't expect Ben would get many minutes played with Charlotte. And once he got that starting opportunity, he's not looked back. And you're right, it's his spot to lose. And he's probably exceeded my expectations early on. And, you know, he's still a young player and everything, so there's going to be dips in form and everything. But until the time being, you're right, this is his spot to lose. And I knew he was a good player, but this early on in MLS, where you talked about the speed of the game coming out of college to MLS, you're right, it is faster. Where, you know, you have fans say, yeah, the speed of the game in some European leagues is a lot faster than it is in MLS. And to see Ben make that fast transition, it's a testament to how clever of a player he is. And Let's go ahead. I mean, I can spend so long talking about Ben Bender. And look, it's going to be hard for me when he comes to Subaru Park. Maybe after the game or whatever, I'll congratulate him. Hopefully the Union will come away with all 3 points. But it is tough to watch, whether you're from Maryland, like I said, or whether you went to College Park, cheering against those guys when they're playing against the Union. But I guess this game out there, cheer against Ben. But all the other games, come on, Ben. But let's go ahead and talk about head coach Miguel Ramirez, who we've been talking about a little bit earlier on in the podcast. He's coached all over Europe. He's coached in Brazil. Now he's coaching in MLS with Charlotte. What kind of soccer/formations does Miguel like to play? I know you said that he doesn't like to use the term formations, but what is it?
So when he was getting his break in coaching in Ecuador with Independiente Valle, he wanted to play a 4-4-2. He liked to use wingers. He liked the back four. With Charlotte, he hasn't had it, the way he necessarily wanted it to be. He wasn't too happy about the build to begin with. We had some very vocal comments that, I'm sure everybody's had an opportunity to hear those, but it was one of those where he, again, is able to be flexible because of his system. He's able to feel comfortable with changing things up. As I said, we've seen a back three, we've seen a back four. Most recently, it has been a back four. He likes to encourage quick passing. He likes to encourage playing out the back. He wants to create overloads when it comes to the defenders, moving the ball to create those spaces. And what we've noticed recently, they've added an extra player up top to play with Karol Swiderski and Daniel Rios. And that's added a real different element to Karol Swiderski's game. He is not a target forward. A lot of MLS writers called him a target forward. This is a man that wants to be involved with the build-up play. He wants to be involved with dropping into his own half to work and create opportunities of his own. So what I've loved about the adjustments that Charlotte FC's made recently is they've added that player to act almost like a decoy, because by adding Daniel Rios up there, you create another player to worry about instead of being able to man mark Karol Swiderski out the game, which we saw in his first couple of performances. So the formation, again, is fluid. We don't know what to expect on Saturday. There may be adjustments. There may be changes in personnel. Obviously, we were out a couple of players with the international break, but I think what you're going to see is a team that wants to play. And I don't like to use a term because I think there's no correct way of playing. But, when you think of the pretty way of playing, the build out at the back, having possession, enjoying the ball, that's a side that you're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about possession, because Jim Curtin, he always says it's the most overrated stat you can use in soccer. It doesn't matter how much you've had the ball, it's what you do with the ball. And just looking at the stats, I mean, Charlotte, in most of the matches this season, they've led in possession. And is that attributed to the opponents that Charlotte have played, or is that something that, Miguel's trying to have his team focus on the last couple games?
Look, I like that quote because I think you're right. I think that it's a misleading stat when it comes to possession. It is first and foremost about what you do with the ball. No point in having the ball if you're just going to play it laterally continuously. But what Charlotte FC does is they're patient with possession. They don't want to force the opportunity and give away a bad ball. They're trying to go direct at the right moment, but it's going to take, a couple of recycles of possession to do so. I think that it's a combination of some of the opposition, but I think it's also about the way that they've grown in the game. They're seeing more possession because they're more confident with the ball at their feet. And I think that in the past couple of games, they're utilizing that possession more effectively. They may have had less possession in the last couple of games, I think, statistically looking at it, but when they have the ball, they're using it effectively. They're creating opportunities. They are finding the passes and the speed of play quicker, which means they have to do less passes to create the space. So I think it's an exciting time for the style of play. And I do think it's about what you do with the ball. But at the end of the day, if you keep the ball for as long as possible, what can the opposition do with it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And let's go ahead and focus on this Saturday's game between the Philadelphia Union and Charlotte FC. Charlotte, they're coming into Subaru Park, where they've played 2 games so far this season on the road, where they are 0-2 with a 3-0 loss to DC United and a 2-1 defeat to Atlanta United. In a game like we talked about where Charlotte, they went for all 3 points instead of a point, which, I can't fault that. I actually think it's pretty courageous, because you see a lot of teams in MLS that go on the road and they sit back and park the bus and let the opposition have a lot of the ball and try to hit you on the counterattack when they get a chance. But no, Charlotte, they came out, attack, Atlanta United. So that's a big credit to Miguel Ramirez and his players for not saying we're going to sit back. I mean, attacking. And I think we're going to get an interesting game this Saturday between 2 teams where I was looking at the stats a little bit. The Philadelphia Union, they've not played against any teams that have pressured them other than Minnesota United, where teams have had the most success against the Union when they're putting them under pressure, where the Union have been pressured the least amount. But looking at the pressuring stats for Charlotte, they're up there in the top 10, I believe, in pressures and then successful pressures too. So it's not like they're just putting on pressure. They're winning the ball back when they're putting pressure on the opposition.
One of the things I love about watching Charlotte FC play is if they turn the ball over, they immediately decide to pounce on the ball. They're trying to win it back. They're putting in those challenges. They have a real good triangle lately. They've been playing in the midfield to try and win those second balls. And that's something they've improved on greatly. I do think they'll try and press on the weekend. I think they will try and lead the press through the likes of Rios and Swiderski. If you watch Miguel Ramirez on the bench, he is extremely animated. He was very vocal on the bench, urging his side to press. They don't want to respect the opposition. And again, that's one of the improvements I've seen. I mentioned that they were a little tentative early on in the season. Now, they're not showing that level of respect. They're going to come out there. They're going to let you know they're there and try and force those turnovers and make you uncomfortable when you have possession.
I'm really looking forward to this game. And I think probably some Union fans at the beginning of the season, when they looked at this matchup, like, oh, it's a brand new team coming into MLS. And you look at what Cincinnati has done ever since they've been in MLS. They've been not what you want an expansion team to be. But Charlotte, they have 2 wins. And like we mentioned, they're press teams and they're turn teams over. And so I think we're going to see both teams going at each other attacking, where the Union, they're 1-1 at home and currently on a 3-game winning streak, while Charlotte are in a 2-game winning streak, which the Union are off to the best start in team history. Daniel Gazag's coming into this game with a 3-game scoring streak as well, and we'll be hoping to see him just continue his hot streak. Stuart Finley and Mikael Ua both missed the game against New York City 2 weeks ago, with Jim Curtin saying that Mikael could have gone 15 minutes if needed, but they said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and give him a rest. Today, on Tuesday, we're recording this podcast. Mikael was out there training with the team. We'll get an update Thursday afternoon from Jim Curtin when he does his weekly press conference, where he'll tell us exactly how long Mikael can go. Will he get the start? Will he not? I don't think Jim Curtin will come out and say, yeah, he's going to start, because he doesn't want to give anything away to Miguel Ramirez. But to see him out there training fully with the team today, that's positive news for Union fans. And Stuart Finley, he's a backup center back, but still just his leadership role in this team. If you want to bring an extra defender on, it's good to have him coming off the bench. And I know you guys had Adam Armour missed last game because of a back injury, but he trained today, I believe. So hopefully you guys are fully fit when you come up to Subaru Park this Saturday. But what are you expecting from the Charlotte side against the Union, who have only lost 6 times at home in MLS regular season since 2019?
Look, we're going to a fortress at the end of the day. It's going to be a tough game. I think when you look at this match, we spoke off air about it being one of the toughest challenges that Charlotte FC is going to face. So I think you need to find the balance right. I said that they shouldn't respect the opposition, but you have to respect the quality of this play. You can't come into this feeling like it's going to be a pushover, because no game in MLS is pushover. It's unpredictable who you're going to face. I think you need to come out there, first 10, 15 minutes, the goal is to not concede, right? You need to try and get as much of the possession as you can, enjoy it, use the ball properly, frustrate Philadelphia. I think that's the biggest word to use, frustrate. That's what Charlotte FC's done a really good job against a lot of the oppositions. Even LA Galaxy, yeah, they lost 1-0, but they were able to frustrate the players for a very long time, because when they enjoyed the possession, when they didn't give them chances, and you want to get that mindset to really get Philadelphia trying to attack, trying to feel like they need to get a goal, and Charlotte FC can catch you on the counter. What they've again done really well in the last couple of matches is transition very quick from defense to offense and catch you off guard with those quick counters. So that's something I would like to see them utilize. But again, I think the most important thing is to go into it with the right mindset. You have a 2-game win streak, you have an opportunity, but you are playing a very tough team. Prepare accurately, respect enough, but don't go in there worrying about how you're going to play. Step on that pitch and enjoy it and take the game to the opposition.
We talked about it where, a lot of teams in MLS are sit deep when they're on the road and park the bus in, but I do not expect that at all. I don't see us doing that.
If there's one thing I can bank on, we're not going to go park the bus. And you mentioned Atlanta. Was I in the commentary booth going nuts a little bit that they weren't trying to park the bus slightly? Yeah. Because there's a time and place for parking the bus. But I don't think you go on there for 90 minutes and try and defend. I think you would be a fool to do so. And the best form of defense at times is attack and trying to get goals. And when you have players like Karol Swiderski on the pitch, you have someone that can create a moment of magic out of nothing. So it would be nice to see a goal.
So let's go ahead and talk about my 3 keys to victory for the Union. Number 1, I think you got to limit Swiderski's chances outside the box. Like you said, a lot of MLS experts are saying that he's a target for it. And like I mentioned, he has 2 goals from outside the 18, one on a free kick and one from Ben Bender sending him a cross in, and he hit it with his left foot. And yeah, you're right. He drops back deep to play defense to win the ball back. And you don't really get that typically from strikers. They want to be up front in the 18-yard box, winning headers. They want to be bullying those center backs, but Swiderski, however he can get involved with his team, he's going to do it. So I think, number 1, you got to try to limit his touches outside of the box. Number 2, the press has to be on time from the Union in this game. Charlotte, they've made their 4th most passes under pressure this season while teams are pressing them. They've suffered the 5th most pressures against them so far this season, but, it doesn't matter if teams are pressing them. They've done a good job passing out of that pressure, and so Philadelphia Union, they make their bread and butter in the pressing system. And so we're going to see them come out and press Charlotte. But they've shown in 5 games this season, it doesn't matter how you press us, we're confident enough in our passing to get out of that press. So I think, if the Union miss time a couple pressures, Charlotte can hit them on the counterattack, and maybe they have advantage of 4 against 3, 5 against 4 on the counterattack. So that's something the Philadelphia Union need to be on point this weekend, in my opinion. And then number 3, I think utilize your speed against Charlotte, whether that's Sergio Santos, Mikael Uhre, Corey Burke, Julian Carranza. I want to see the Union midfielders put these guys in 1v1 situations against their center backs, and, let them go against Christian Fuchs, who he's been a good captain. He's played decent for Charlotte. He was responsible for the goal against Atlanta United. He's 35 years old. He's not the player he once was with Leicester in the Premier League. And I don't think anybody was expecting that kind of player, because if he was, he'd still be over in England. But I really want to see the Union just get these guys in 1v1 situations against the center backs and just test your luck. But, I think we're going to get a great game. And just for any Union fans that are listening that think the Union are just going to roll over as Charlotte, they're going to lie down. No, that's not going to be the case at all, in my opinion.
No, and I think that your 3 keys are really pivotal. And you mentioned Christian Fuchs. Yeah, he is older, a little slower at times, but he makes up for it in positioning. You mentioned the Atlanta United era. It's towards the end of the game, but I think you have 3 really good keys. And the most important thing for me is that it's going to be a good competitive match. In the words of our manager, Miguel Ramirez, all we want to do is be competitive in every single game. And that's a testimony. And they're coming in as an inaugural side, and they're proving a lot of people wrong. There were so many people that put them bottom of the league, that they were going to be useless, that they were quote unquote screwed, which obviously came from our manager, but it doesn't matter where it came from. But I think they're proving a lot of people wrong and impressing across the board. So here's to an exciting match on Saturday.
Absolutely. Well, Jessica, fans aren't following you on social media, if they don't know where to listen to the broadcast, where can they find all that stuff on social media?
So it's going to be at Jess Talks Footy on all social media platforms. And then we'll be on WFNZ on the app, so you can listen in wherever you're at on the radio.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And I don't know how fans can be against Charlotte FC when you're wearing their amazing jersey, top 3 this season in MLS. They have an amazing logo, crest, whatever you want to call it. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow @FreeKickPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And as always, for fans that are leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts, highly appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jessica, for taking time out of your day to preview this game with me. And good luck to you guys today, Saturday, and going forward this season. And until then, my name is Todd, and this is The Free Kick Podcast.